and welcome back to the Rogues of the Garage channel. This is Mail Call, episode 11, where I am opening envelopes filled with cards associated with the Outlaws of Thunder Junction set, as well as its expansions, or sheets. Let's get to the envelopes. All right, we have the Vault-Born Tyrant. I believe this is the showcase version. It may be the raised foil showcase version. There are different versions out there. This is a 2 green, 5 color, 6/6 with trample. Whenever the Vault-Born Tyrant or another creature of power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, gain 3 life and draw a card. So those are nice little side effects. And when the Vault-Born Tyrant dies, if it's not a token, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. You get essentially a second life with this one. Pretty nice way to start off today's episode. All right, and here we have the non-foil version of Hindering Light in the breaking news format. 1 blue, 1 white. It's an instant. Counter target spell that targets you or a permanent you control, and then draw a card. Pretty nice little counter spell. I like the extra ability of drawing a card for 2 mana. That's not bad. Again, in previous episodes, I received a foil version, but as I've touched upon in other episodes, I am trying to collect the non-foil version of cards unless the card only comes in a foil version. Now, it was nice receiving the foil version of Hindering Light, but this is what's going to go into my collection. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, here we have, I'll put it in view there, the Nexus of Becoming. I believe this is a showcase version. It's a 6 mana for an artifact. At the beginning of combat, on your turn, draw a card. Then you may exile an artifact or creature card from your hand. If you do, create a token that's a copy of the exiled card, except it's a 3/3 golem artifact creature in addition to its other types. This feels like a way of getting extra creatures out onto the board in addition to the artifacts or other creatures that you may have. Nice way of just kind of providing your board with more options. And here we have the extended art version of Leyline Binding. This comes from the Breaking News set, where they did 15 additional, I believe it's 15 additional cards in this style, where they essentially eliminated the board, which is what's funny to me. They eliminated the frame that gave the whole aesthetic of the old, the old newspaper, and instead they just went full art. Now, they kept the art from the original Breaking News cards, so it is different art than what you find in your other reprints, these items. But it's funny to me, right? You start off, the whole aesthetic is newspaper, then you just get rid of the newspaper completely within the set. These cards I have found to be rather pricey, so they seem to be in high demand. It sounds like the art style is quite appreciated amongst players out there. And this, again, is Leyline Binding. 1 white, 5 colorless. Flash enchantment. Domain. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each basic land type among lands you control. When Leyline Binding enters battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Leyline Binding leaves the battlefield. So it's a way to kind of cripple your opponent's mana pool, particularly if they only have access to a limited number of certain mana colors. You can certainly cripple that as long as the binding stays in place. Here we have Collector's Cage in the showcase version. So 1 white, 1 colorless, hideaway of 5. You pay 1 and tap this to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. So that can be handy in certain situations. Able to buff creatures as well as play a card for free. All right, ladies and gentlemen, to add in this cutaway. So after looking through the cards, after starting to sleeve things for my collection, I realized that the Collector's Cage sleeve came with a second card, the Bristlebud Farmer. Also in the showcase style, 2 green, 2 colorless for a trample. Is it 5/5? When Bristlebud Farmer enters the battlefield, create 2 food tokens. Whenever Bristlebud Farmer attacks, you may sacrifice a food. If you do, mill 3 cards. You may put a permanent card from among them into your hand. So just another way of kind of getting through your deck, getting to the cards that really matter. And so there we go. Bristlebud Farmer. Alrighty, I believe this is a raised foil of Loot, the key to everything. 1 red, 1 blue, 1 green for a 1/2. Ward of 1. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of card types among other non-land permanents you control. You may play those cards this turn. Again, it's a way of kind of getting through your library, being able to get to cards that might be more useful for you at that point in the game than others. So it's not that bad. I think the mana cost does make it a bit difficult. It's not that 3 is a lot, but when it's 3 specific, it's got to be 1 red, 1 blue, 1 green. That can be a bit of a challenge at times, but its ability isn't, again, it's not a bad one to have. Be able to kind of mill your own deck to get to the cards that you need. Here we have Vengevine. Now I've had this card 2 other times, but they were the foil versions, and I specifically asked for the non-foil version. The thing that I like about this specific Vengevine is that it was a card that was given out during store competitions in the OTGA era, and the non-foil versions. Not only do I want the non-foil version because that's the type of cards I'm collecting, but also the non-foil version here with these store cards is that they provide the name of the store. If you look down here at the bottom right, this came from a store known as Dungeon's Gate. The Vengevine went to the winner of that store's competition. The hollow one, which I showed in an earlier video, went to a top 8 finisher. So I think those are kind of unique. Not only is the artwork different, but the full card view with the name of the store, I think it's pretty cool as a level of uniqueness. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have multiple cards here. So let's start with this. Feels like there's multiple cards in the sleeve. Extended art version from the Breaking News expansion of Anguished Unmaking. 1 black, 1 white, 1 colorless for an instant. Exile. Target non-land permanent. You lose 3 life. Exile is different than simply destroy, right? Destroy, you put it in the graveyard, and it's much easier to bring back. Exile, it's almost impossible to bring back exiled cards unless it's coming from an ability that you yourself cast upon your creatures or your opponent's creatures. Cast from an opponent, I don't know if there are ways to bring back exiled creatures. So for the cost of only 3 life, you could remove a major game changer from the board from an opponent. That is a very, very powerful ability to possess. Next, we have an extended art version of Contagion Engine from the Breaking News expansion. 6 colorless artifact. When Contagion Engine enters the battlefield, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature target player controls. For a cost of 4 and tap, you can proliferate twice. So that can get really nasty really fast. If you're playing, I suspect if you're playing a lot of token decks, and Commander, I think a lot of decks are based around tokens. You get the Contagion Engine out, and you can start to quickly eliminate opponents' tokens. I suspect this might also make you a target, but it is a nice little counter to have against those high volume token decks. And again, I really do enjoy the artwork here. Next, we have the extended art or full art or whatever they're calling it, version of Crackle with Power from the Breaking News set. Again, 2 red, X 3 times. Crackle with Power deals 5 times X damage to each of up to X targets. That can get powerful real fast. Paying the 3 is what's going to get difficult. But if you have this in a ramp deck, I don't think it fits in the Desert Bloom Precon, but in a deck like that, in the sense that it ramps or can ramp pretty quickly with mana. And this could be a game-changing card. You spend 12 mana on it, deal 20 damage to an opponent, and not just 20 damage to a single opponent. You can do it up to, in that case, 4. So that's a lot of damage to be spitting out with that one card. All right, Crime and Punishment, the extended art version from the Breaking News expansion. Again, 2 spells in 1. First you got Crime, which is 1 black, 1 white, 3 colorless. Put target creature or enchantment card from opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. And then Punishment, 1 green, 1 black, and X. Destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with mana value equal to X. This is a way to weaken an opponent while strengthening yourself. Because the second spell, Punishment, has X value, you can try to specifically avoid your spells that have a specific mana value and target your opponents that might have spells of a specific value. And so it could become very handy. The problem is I think you have to specifically have green, black, white. I'm not sure. Maybe that's Grand Larceny. I can't exactly remember. I thought Grand Larceny may have included blue and not white, but I could double check. But either way, even if you didn't use it in one of the pre-con decks, it could become a very handy card in the right situation. Next, the extended art version of the Grindstone. 1 colorless artifact. Pay 3 and tap. Target player mills 2 cards. If 2 cards that share color were milled this way, repeat the process. I mean, I think this is I win versus a monocolored deck if I understand this card correctly. If you have an opponent that's playing mono red and all they're milling is red, it just keeps going until their library is exhausted. This is an absolute win con against monocolored decks. And even if they're only playing a dual colored deck, there's still a chance that you could mill quite a few cards. Indomitable Creativity, 3 red plus X. Destroy X target artifacts and or creatures for each permanent destroyed this way. Its controller reveals cards from the top of their library until an artifact or creature card is revealed and exiles that card. Those players put the exiled cards onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So you're going to be able to wipe boards and then reset boards. All right. And I think the last time I looked at this card, I'm like, I'm kind of confused. I don't know what's going on here. Upon the second reading, that feels like what's happening here. You're going to wipe the board, and then you're counting on the fact that the cards that you have at the top of your library that are going to get exiled and put on the battlefield are going to be better than the cards of your opponents. Lastly, from this sleeve, we have Overwhelming Forces. Once again, the extended art version, the Breaking News style. 2 black, 6 colorless. For sorcery, destroy all creatures target opponent controls. Draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. Now, this is an expensive sorcery. 8 mana is a lot. I do like the ability to draw a lot of cards. I just don't know if that makes up for the extreme mana cost. Next, we have Fractured Identity in the, again, extended art Breaking News style. 1 blue, 1 white, 3 colorless sorcery. Exile target non-land permanent. Each player other than its controller creates a token that's a copy of it. If you have one person just dominating the table, this is a way to, I think, kind of help keep them in check a little bit while strengthening yourself, but the other opponents as well. Force of Vigor, extended art, a version of Breaking News. 2 green, 2 colorless for the instant. If it's not your turn, you may exile a green card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Destroy up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantment. In many cases, a real easy way of getting rid of some powerful or potentially powerful cards from your opponent's board. Next, we have Thoughtseize. Extended art, Breaking News style, 1 black. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card, you lose 2 life. It's not terrible, particularly for 1 black and 2 life. That's not a bad spell. I think you'd like to have access to see their hand prior, or at least have an idea of what's in their hand before casting it. But for 1 black and 2 life, it's a pretty good exchange. Oko, Thief of Crowns, in that extended art Breaking News style. All right, 1 blue, 1 green, 1 colorless for a Planeswalker of 4 loyalty. +2, create a food token. +1, create artifact. +1 is target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elk creature with base power toughness 3/3. For -5, exchange control of target artifact or creature you control and target creature an opponent controls with power 3 or less. So again, I think that is a great way of trying to just quickly change power dynamics on a board, as well as free food tokens are always nice. Next, we have Mindslaver, 6 colorless. It's an artifact, pay 4, tap it, sacrifice Mindslaver. You control target player during that player's next turn. That is dirty. All right, that is very, very dirty. And again, I really like the art on this one. I think it's pretty sweet. So ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is the raised foil version, i.e. the most expensive version of the Vault-Born Tyrant. We, I believe, started this episode with the Vault-Born Tyrant, which I think was the basic showcase version. And now we are ending this episode with the raised foil version. As we said earlier, 2 green, 5 colorless for 6/6 with trample. Whenever the tyrant or another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, you get to gain 3 life and draw a card. And when it dies, it creates a token, so you kind of get a second life of the character. Not a bad way to end this week's episode. Thank you for joining us.